shows Democratic Texas State Representative James Talarico is leading Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett by 9 points in the Democratic Senate Texas primary.
An Emerson College Nexstar Media survey released Thursday shows Talarico with 47% support and Crockett with 38%. And we should note here that Nexstar Media does own the Hill.
The polling shows Talarico gaining support from Hispanic and white voters, winning almost 6 in 10 from each group, while 80% of black voters in the primary sided with Crockett.
Men sided with Talarico by 22 points, while women were evenly split between the two Democrats. Talarico, a former middle school teacher, raised more than $13 million since launching his bid in September.
Now, Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer told Politico earlier this week that he views Texas as a, quote, very possible pickup opportunity.
On the GOP side, the poll shows a tight race. Attorney General Ken Paxton leading Senator John Cornyn by 1 point at 27 to 26%, with 29% undecided. Representative Wesley Hunt is polling at 16% support. Emerson College Polling Executive Director Spencer Kimball said neither Ken Paxton nor John Cornyn appears positioned to reach 50% on the primary ballot as the Republican electorate remains sharply divided. With Wesley Hunt gaining traction at 16%, a runoff between the two candidates now appears likely in May.
In a hypothetical matchup, the poll shows both Talarico and Crockett tied with Paxton at 46%. Economy leads as the top issue for most Texas voters, followed by immigration and threats to the democracy. So we've been seeing a lot of these polls, and they've been going back and forth. I know Jasmine had some wind beneath her wings in the past few weeks and was talking about it, about how she's done a lot of these research herself to see that she has a chance. We saw that a lot of men, it seems, in these early polls in the Democratic primary are not supporting Crockett in the same way. And I think her and Talarico present two different options. But I know what Jasmine Crockett is going after based on interviews that she's done is these low propensity voters. And Texas, I've realized through doing this show, has a dramatic number of people who just don't vote in a lot of elections. Almost 50%, if not more. Sometimes it's a little bit more. And so I think when she's talking about the people that she's going after, she thinks that she can rally some people to get out of their seats. And some people say that a lot of those low propensity voters maybe historically would lean Democratic or more liberal. And so if they do, then she might have an opportunity to sway a place where people are like, you have absolutely no chance. And so Chuck Schumer is being very positive about it all. Texas is a hard place. I know I spend a lot of time there. My partner's from there. So I get how it could be a hard place for somebody that has such a firm voice as Jasmine Crockett. And maybe if anyone won, they may want one more neutral. But she has a few months to try to prove what she's bringing to the table outside of arguing with President Trump, which we know now is not a winning message. I mean, Kamala campaigned on that. It takes a little bit more. So if she sticks to the economy, and no, it's not going to be like Mamdani type of economy politics happening in Texas, but if she sticks to talking about what's hurting people the most, I think she might have a real argument to get people to at least pay attention and maybe get close to breaking that barrier, if not breaking it.
I was kind of surprised by this polling because I anticipated that the Democratic primary voter was going to be, on average, more progressive than a general election Democrat or really any voter, and that she would poll quite well with them over James Talarico, who is perceived as being slightly more moderate. But that hasn't been the case, and perhaps that's a sign that the Democratic primary electorate is looking at electability in the general election, which has been a source of tension on the Republican side, too, in the debate between Ken Paxton and John Cornyn, where there's been a consistent slate of polls released suggesting that John Cornyn would perform better in a general over Ken Paxton. But Republican primary voters slightly prefer Ken Paxton because he's perceived as being more conservative, right? And so you're seeing a similar dynamic on both sides of the race in partisan terms that I find really fascinating. I've been following the Paxton-Cornyn race a little bit more closely just because I have more sources there. And what I've been hearing basically from both camps is that they pretty much know this thing is going to go to a runoff because of Wesley Hunt's inclusion in the race. And they both are very confident that they can win the runoff, right? Ken Paxton's team has been arguing that he's been outraising John Cornyn. They expect that if they go to a runoff, he will run out of money and they'll basically smoke him. And then alternatively, John Cornyn expects to have the support of the sort of establishment donor class and the, Senate committees, the Senate PACs supporting him in a runoff. And so he thinks he'll actually be able to outpace Ken Paxton. It's all very fun to watch. But yeah, as I mentioned, I'm kind of surprised by the polling on the Democratic side showing Talarico leading by as much as he is when we don't see that similar sort of trouncing between Paxton and Cornyn.
Yeah, I think with Jasmine Crockett, she has a lot going for her because of the name recognition. So automatically that kind of puts her on the map. And we've seen her in recent weeks spend the beginning of the new year on some big shows like The View. But a lot of the conversation outside of, which was a little bit about Texas, was about a variety of the things going on with the president right now, Venezuela. And so I think she has to really focus in and think about all these the media attention and exactly what she's saying and doing that shows policy. Because what we noticed in the Democratic Party that was happening over time when Kamala was running was that people felt like they weren't connecting. And I know that's a federal election and not a local election, but still people felt that there wasn't that connection that really tells you what you're going to do for us as Americans, what you're going to do to change our finances and make it more comfortable. And so that still is, unfortunately, the number one issue on people's mind is just affordability. And what we're hearing in the argument is that a lot of Republicans will say it feels like, might feel still bad, but it really is good. Look at the numbers. And we were heavily critical of Biden for doing the same thing. Like, we don't care what you're telling us in a chart. People can't afford the same groceries they did in 2016, let's say. So I think Jasmine Crockett has to make sure that the messaging is effective. Otherwise, people are going to go with a safer bet because they're like, listen, if one or the other and somebody's talking about the economy out of these two and we wanted the Democratic person, then we're just going to go with Talarico. But if Jasmine Crockett can push through that she has an effective, workable agenda for Texas and be very clear and direct about specific policies, I think that she would have a better chance of getting those people who were not interested, feeling like she's talking to them again, out to at least get her into the race.
There's always a danger, right, in over-nationalizing a campaign, even when you're running for a statewide race like U.S. Senate. And I wonder if that's one of the reasons why Paxton is not really outpacing John Cornyn, because he has made a lot of his race about loyalty to Trump and the administration and things that he wants to see happen on a judicial level, in terms of federal politics, and has not been focused as much on Texas. I mean, he's run on his record, sure, but also in a forward-looking way. What are you going to do for the people in your state? And if it's just defending President Trump, well, maybe that doesn't resonate with people when the economy is one of their top issues, and Trump has been kind of dismissive about people's concerns on the economy. And so I think Jasmine Crockett does face a similar dilemma, because her rising star was created by being perceived as this fighter against the Trump administration, but you also have to speak to the direct concerns of the constituents that you're trying to represent.
It's interesting because now that you say that, I think about Texas as a representation of the party breaks in both parties, right?
Yeah.
We're seeing that we can easily criticize Democrats about their way forward. They think that, like, people are worried if they win the midterms, they might just try to impeach the president all over again. And I'm sure that I'm confident that a lot of people do not want to see that happen again. They like to see policies pushed forward. And so that's the break of, like, did that work last time, or did that put fuel in President Trump's fire and his party? And then there's the other side of President Trump, the MAGA base, that just loyal to the president no matter what, even when they know, like, this is not the right time to be saying this, the right tone. But they're still loyal, still defending him. And then there's other people that, you know, can step up, like Lisa Murkowski we see traveling to Greenland. It's like, hey, this kind of doesn't feel right for a lot of Republicans, and I'm going to be the one to put my face next to this.
And even Republicans who adopt a lot of the populist policy agenda that has been championed by Trump, like Senator Josh Hawley from Missouri, have come under fire by the president lately for opposing regime change in Venezuela. And so even if you are supporting some of those sort of MAGA or America First policies, that doesn't keep you immune, as we've seen, from the president's ire.
Right. Candace Owens is under fire for her latest theories about Charlie Kirk. I know you saw this. We'll be right back to talk about it.